Good afternoon, Susan.
Good afternoon, Natalia. How are you?
I'm doing okay. I'm so delighted and so grateful that you agreed to chat with us so fellows can get to know a little bit more about you and we can celebrate the 60th anniversary of the Academy.
It's hard to believe we've been around that long.
It's a beautiful thing, and thank you for your leadership and for your being gracious today to give us some of your time. And as you reflect on your experience with the Academy, your role as president, and where you think the Academy is headed. So, I have a number of questions that the fellows want to know. So I'm gonna start off with the question of how did you come to learn about the Academy?
Well, as you know, I'm from Houston, Texas, and in Texas, we have an event for the Advanced Family Law course. And during that event, on Monday nights, you would watch all of these beautifully dressed people walk across the lobby and go to their special events. So it was black tie, and the gowns were just stunning. And you would look at the people and you go, well, wait a minute, that was the speaker from yesterday, and that's the speaker for tomorrow. And you knew that those were the leaders. You knew those that were the people that were making the cases that everybody else looked up to. And I'd be down at the lobby getting ready to go to dinner or go out with friends or whatever. And I went, I want to be like that. I want to be one of those one day. So that's how I got introduced to the concept. And then over time, my friends were in the academy and they suggested that I apply.
Well, that's beautiful. That's beautiful. And I hope people are still dressing up as you see in the
We
academy.
do. We do. In Texas, it's still black tie.
Oh, that's beautiful. Now, what has the academy, since you're becoming a fellow and being introduced to it, what has the academy meant to you in your career?
Oh gosh, Natalia, that would be a big book. But so let's talk about some of the concepts that when I would talk to people on membership and as a representative of the academy, these are the things that I would say because it's from the heart. The first thing that I really appreciated about the academy was feeling like I belonged and being around people who were so giving and sharing. My very first mentor was Cheryl Hepfer. And so when she was in charge of the newsletter, I would literally follow her around because she was taking pictures in the olden days when we used film. And when her camera would run out of film, I would take the full one and run to her bag and get a new canister, take it back to her. And more often than not, there would be like a hole in the picture, like she'd put me in there. And so some of my friends were like, why do you put all the pictures for the newsletter? And I was like, because they didn't have enough people in the group or whatever. So that was part of it. And then the friends that were both in my chapter and those that I met in different committees and in different meetings, we've just become lifelong friends. So that's the hook, that once you get to those meetings and you realize these are my people, they understand what it's like to do what I do, and they will help me elevate my practice and elevate the practice across the country. So that's what that keeps me. But some other things that I think we do is we elevate the practice, not just for ourselves, but for our communities, the country. It's a way to give back to a practice and a career that has given so much to us. It's also a way to make a difference. Some of the things that we've done over the years, we're so proud of. It really is a remarkable group of people that as I progressed during the leadership, I would become more and more aware of the gifts that we bring to the tables when people are having conflicts and having the resources truly throughout the country to be able to help our clients and our colleagues solve their issues. It's real value that we bring to the fellows.
Now, you mentioned as you progressed in leadership, what what roles have you taken on? And if you could tell fellows, when were you president? What year was that?
I was elected president in 2019, but before I jumped into that, I joined a lot of committees that I had some personal interest in, whether it was um, domestic violence or membership or admissions or the publications. Back then it was sales. Whatever it was that I had an interest in, I would participate. And over the years, I would either be chair or vice chair and participate not just in the work of it, but in the leadership of it. As I got onto the national offices, it started out being membership chair. And that truly, it's still to this day, one of my favorite jobs, because you're the cheerleader. You're the cheerleader for the academy. And your job is to help other chapters and the national office and the officers make sure that you figure out, how do we get qualified candidates in all of the different jurisdictions? How do we keep qualified candidates? How do we keep our fellows engaged? And so that work, that was like a 5-year job. And they finally pushed me out and didn't want me to do that anymore. And then I became secretary for a few years. And I liked that job too, because being secretary or treasurer, you learn everything because you have to keep track of it, right? It's part of your job description. And then I was second vice president for a number of years. I filled a couple of 1-year terms for people and a couple of, I think, a full year term. And then it was my turn to be first vice president.
Well, and that you did. And that was a remarkable year, not just because the world turned upside down, but
yeah, but Natalia, before the world turned upside down, let's kind of back up, because it was in 2019, which is when you lead up, because you're really the leader starting it when you are president-elect, because you're finding your venue, you're picking your prom themes, you're doing a lot of work in preparation for your year as president. But it's a big team. It's not just you doing all that work. It's the national office, it's all the officers, it's your committee leaders. I mean, it's a big production that keeps moving from year to year as it progresses. So in my year, we wanted to do something that was a nod to the space world. And since my husband works for NASA, it seemed like a perfect opportunity to latch on to all of those skill sets. So we turned the ballroom into a space station. And on that space station, we had videos from the International Space Station looking down on it so we could see the Earth passing beneath us. Now, little did we know that being in an outer world experience in November was going to prepare us for the out of this world experience of COVID. So it was a good entree into, you just have to be prepared and you have to be ready to change, because nobody is better at pivoting than family lawyers.
Oh, that is very true. Now, how did you pivot? If you could speak to a little bit about what were the moments during your year as president that really signal how you were able to, in my opinion, very gracefully manage all that was being thrown at you and changed and undone that you had planned?
And be clear, Natalia, it wasn't just me, it was everyone. Everybody on executive, national office. We had some of our core leaders, particularly our past presidents, that were familiar with hotel contracts and dealing with all the things that we'd never paid attention to, quite literally, because they're in our contracts, and we had to really dig deep. We started noticing things shortly at the first of the year. Hints were going on at the end of 2019. But in 2020, we started watching and trying to figure out how we were going to solve this. Because the first and foremost is the health and safety of our fellows, right? That's always at the forefront. But health and safety of our fellows includes our financial well-being, right? So if we were going to end up having to cancel a contract, the damages on that were going to be significant. Although we had previously bought and had some insurance to cover some of those cancellations, guess what wasn't covered? Oh, I don't know, a pandemic, because most of our policies had never thought about a pandemic. So that was the first moment of pivot. And what most people don't know is the angst that we all went through figuring out when we needed to cancel, when we needed to cancel that would maximize our financial benefit or minimize our damages. And sadly, that occurred the Thursday before we were supposed to go to the mid-year meeting, because we had the meeting, the executive committee meeting in Houston for January, and we had it down at NASA, and we ate dinner under the space, under the Apollo 17. I mean, we really had a great time. And then shortly after that meeting, it was obvious that things weren't going the way they should. So when we made that decision on 12th, it's the first time we have canceled a mid-year meeting, which means 2 years, almost 2 years of work preparing for all that goes into a mid-year meeting, not just our work, but those of the committees and the CLEs and you know what goes into it. All that had to pivot. Now, we weren't able to turn the CLE around immediately. Let me tell you one thing that I am immensely proud of. 5 days after we canceled the meeting, we issued a press release. That press release was something that we put together with our friends over at AFCC, and it was entitled 7 Guidelines for Parents Sharing Custody during COVID, or during the pandemic is how we claimed it, because we didn't start short-terming it to COVID for a while. That piece of work, which was turned around so quickly, was truly a watershed of attention from media, from the courts, from people. You should see when you watch the numbers on our website, you should see the hits that were coming. Because one of the things that we did when we work with press is it's conditioned. And we have a big policy about how all this works. It's conditioned. If a reporter wants to speak to us, we must first be given an opportunity to talk about the academy. We'll answer their questions, but we want you to understand, or whoever the audience is, we want you to understand the voice we're coming from. And nothing became more apparent to me than the importance of the voice of the academy in our society than during that time period. I mean, with those 7 guidelines were adopted by courts, they were adopted by legislatures, they were adopted by law firms, they were adopted by Supreme Courts who issued the rules for their whole state. I mean, it was a watershed moment. And that's one of the things I'm most proud of, because we took a core team of people that had been working with AFCC. AFCC got a core team. We created something, we marketed it in a way that was, I mean, we hit a home run. So as bad as COVID was, and it's still bad, the academy, because we were so flexible and because family lawyers are so trained at pivoting, we made it into lemonade.
Yep.
We really did. And those benefits, those reporters that we've developed relationships over the years, they've stayed with us because they want follow-up. You know, are you seeing an uptick in cases? Are you seeing a downtick in cases? All right, what are people fighting over now? Are you seeing an increase in collegiality or decrease? You know, all the kinds of questions that talking to us help them realize we really do have a good finger on the pulse of what's going on in our families. And here's something that I think a lot of people don't realize. The academy is the only group where it's not get a plaque for a check. Right? And so one of the things that the reporters 2A1 commented on, I had no idea. I said, we're vetted, we are tested, and then we're voted on by our chapters and by the national office. It's a big gauntlet that you go through to be able to prove that you are a leader, that you're professional, that you are considered an expert. And so hopefully that carried through in some of their storylines, so that the value to the fellows is that when you say I'm an academy fellow, it means something to people. They've got to, they can grasp it. I mean, truthfully, we're not that to everybody, but that's okay. That's okay. When people need high quality candidates to hire for their family lawyers, if they're looking at our website first, we've done our job.
And the website looks great. Thanks.
It's getting up there. It's getting up there.
Looks wonderful. Now, you talked about some of the requirements and what it takes to become a fellow. So those who are listening, who are prospective fellows and, you know, thinking about whether or not they would want to take on that effort, what should be the attraction for them? What would you say the attraction to the academy should be for those folks who are listening?
The word that comes to mind today, and there are others, is value. It's value to you as a person, as a practitioner, as someone in society trying to make a difference. If you are serious about practicing at the highest level of family law, this is a group you should consider. You can't apply until you've at least got 9 years under your belt. If you're in a board certified state, you've got to make sure you've got all that. And you have to start developing your skill set so that your courts and your peers go, she knows what she's talking about. He is an expert on these issues in family law. And it's not just one issue of family law. You have to be a broad brush kind of practitioner. You have to be able to do property. You have to be able to do custody. People have to be able to look at you on the website and go, I could refer her a case from California to Houston, and I have confidence that she'll know what she's doing. And I also have confidence, this is the other thing that I love about the people in the academy. If it's not my skill set, if there's a better lawyer for that case in that particular court or in that jurisdiction, I probably know who I need to send you to.
Right.
And that's value. That's value to your clients. And it, being a resource to our colleagues and to our clients, I think it's why we do what we do. The other, I mentioned earlier, the drive that keeps me are the relationships. I mean, you hear this over and over again. Some of my best friends are in the academy. Some of my husband's best friends are now in the academy, and their spouses and loved ones. My daughter grew up in the academy. So it has really filled my life with so much richness, really so much richness.
And congratulations to you for your daughter being a prospective fellow one day.
I know, Natalia, the irony that she is a family lawyer in Denver will never, ever be lost on. When she was a little girl, we'd be at parties and things that are, for lawyers. And my friends would, well, when you grow up, you're going to be a family lawyer like your mom. Oh, no, I never want to work that hard. It was, yeah. And sure enough, she's out there working that hard. The other thing, if you are a prospective, or if you're a fellow that hasn't gotten involved, let me invite you to consider this. When our daughter was looking for a college, I was able to say to her in complete honesty, there was not one city in this country I could not get eyeballs on her in an hour.
Yeah.
And maybe that's not important to our children, but for the parents out there, that's a quality that you like to have.
Exactly. Well, that's when you model excellence. If I could have had if I were clairvoyant and I saw you and your daughter many years ago, I would have guessed that she would become a family lawyer one day.
Well, she knows so many people in the academy. She started reaching out to them for referrals and things.
That's awesome. Now, I do want to ask you another question just about, when you talk about all of the roles that you have taken on in the academy, are there lessons learned? Are there things you would tell your younger sort of fellow self what to do differently, if anything?
If it's advice for me, it would be, don't take on more than you have time for. Because I learned from my mentors, if you are assigned a task and you say yes, you do it, whatever it takes. If you are supposed to be at meetings, you're at meetings. If you are supposed to get a project done, you get it done correctly, you get it done on time. And if you need more help, you early on tell people you need more help, because they'll come to your rescue. But if you're known as somebody who just wants to do this and get their name on committees without doing the work, don't. Just enjoy the parties, enjoy the CLE, enjoy your friends. Don't take on more than you want to. Not everybody wants to do a lot of committee work. That's fair. Some people just want to go and have a good time with people that they get along with. That's great too. We've got some people who have retired from practicing law. They still come to our meetings because they want to be with their friends.
Right.
Because it's fun. We go to good places. We have nice food. We have fun CLEs.
We dress up
We dress up. We have fun. We care about each other. When we find out somebody's not doing well, you'll get 30 emails.
Mhm.
When it's somebody's birthday or some sort of anniversary or something, people will reach out, not because it's some sort of marketing gimmick, it's because they really do care.
Very true. So I will ask you one last question. And this is, I want you to look into the future, which I
Ah,
know only you can do, being that you have a, you know, husband that works for NASA. I'm sure you know what's ahead. Where do you see the next 60 years for the Academy? Where do you see us going? What's ahead on the horizon?
oh gosh, that's a tough one. Some of the same and some of the growth. We watched in COVID how we were leading the way to innovation and responding to challenges because that's our training. But what we were able to do with turning things around into virtual meetings, salvaging our CLEs so that we could have webinars, bringing value in a way that we had not seen before, I think that's going to continue.
Mhm.
Now, it's going to take a lot of work and it will take our resources to make it happen. But family law isn't going away. People talk about divorce rates are going down. Well, divorce rates are going down, perhaps, but so are marriage rates.
Mhm.
But it doesn't mean people aren't still forming families and creating conflicts because of those formations.
Mhm.
And we have, of all the areas of practicing law, bar none, we have the benefit and the curse of being on every side of a case.
Mhm.
We are arguing one issue and the opposite issue the next day. We have to know a lot about the largest variety of what hits the world
Mhm.
than any other practice. So whether it's COVID or cryptocurrency, we need to be on the cutting edge of providing that data to our fellows so they can provide it to their clients, to their courts, and to their communities. That piece will always be the same. We've always done that. What will be different is how we message it.
Mhm. Well, I'm sure you're right. I'm grateful that you're right. That the rich history of the academy will continue, and continue to to we will continue to be thought leaders around issues that impact families. And it's in your leadership and your thoughtfulness that I get a seat at the table. So I'm so grateful to you and your leadership, and I know everyone is, and just fortunate that we could celebrate this 60th rich history with you.
Oh, it's going to be a great year.
Thank you so much, Susan.